the Game Boy.
Yes. Okay. Now
The 25th anniversary of the Game Boy releases. I always forgot that it was in the springtime when it was released.
Mm-hmm. It's one of my favorite systems. When I did my pins for MagFest, it was one of the 4 systems that got its own pin.
Ian gave out pins at MagFest. He gave out Neo Geo Pocket Color, Game Boy, PC Engine. What was the 4th one?
Genesis.
Okay.
Yeah. So the Game Boy was created in, I believe, it was released in 1989, but the development was headed by Gunpei Yokoi, who was also the father of the Game & Watch. And what he did was take everything he learned on the Game & Watch, including how to work with outdated technology and I believe he referred to it as withering tech.
Mm-hmm.
He learned how to take withering tech and turn it into a cartridge-based system, but he transferred over a lot of the things that he had created on the Game & Watch that were used by Nintendo, things like the D-pad, the buttons, and all that. And he made Nintendo made this very low-tech handheld. It only showed 4 shades of, they call it green, but I mean it's gray, but it's
gray green. It was green on the first.
It takes 4 AA batteries, but it does last a while, and it came out at a price point that wasn't too painful on the wallet, unlike the Atari Lynx, which retailed for almost $200.
Was it $89.99?
Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. I was going to err on the side of $100, but I
want to say it was $90. For some reason, that's sticking out in my mind.
Right. Well, for a long time, Nintendo kept their portables at a really cheap price point by using this withering tech design theory.
It wasn't color, so
right.
So the screen alone, if it was color, it would have been a lot more like the Game Gear.
Sure.
But it wasn't.
So it launched with Tetris, baseball,
tennis,
Alleyway, and Super Mario Land. Super Mario Land.
That was a launch title?
That was a launch title.
Was there one more I'm missing?
There was one more in
I'll
Japan.
look it up.
There was 5 here.
All right.
But it went on to be one of the most popular selling systems. It wasn't surpassed by anything Nintendo did until their DS. And, it sold something like 118 million units, I think. Now, that's including the Pocket and the Color revisions, but they're all roughly running on the same hardware.
Sure.
The Color is a little bit, it's very slightly souped up, very slightly. But yeah, I love it. I definitely, I play my Game Boy all the time, but, I made sure to play it on Monday, which was the actual birthday, and I have a Snoopy lunchbox that you gave me that I put all of my Game Boy carts in.
Aww.
And what amazed me is as I'm playing through some of these is, we kind of talked about this before about, mobile games and cell phone games. But these games on the Game Boy that are over 15 years old, a lot of them hold my attention far better than anything that I could be playing on a phone or something like that. Like they did so much with the technology.
Well, the technology was some of the games. Well, it came out 4 years after the NES,
right?
So in terms of what they could do, some of the Game Boy games are really impressive, even though it's only monochrome basically.
Yeah, some of the effects that it does, like if you play, say for instance, well, this is a good example for 2 things that I want to bring up. Sunsoft's Batman on the Game Boy,
Mm-hmm.
Very different from the NES and Genesis versions. But like at the start of every level, it does this unique thing where it like rotates and flips the screen upside down, just an effect that the Nintendo could not handle properly.
Sure.
And Batman or any Sunsoft game on the Game Boy will show you just how amazing that sound chip was compared to Nintendo's. And that's one of the things that keeps the Game Boy really relevant today is the huge chiptune scene that revolves largely. I wish they would branch out a little bit more, but revolves largely around the Game Boy. Why? Because it's cheap, it's portable, and it's powerful. I mean, that system had some really good tech in it, despite the pea soup green. It was nice.
You forget that a lot of like the later NES games, like DuckTales 2, a lot of those had Game Boy ports that they came out with a lot more. And for a handheld, they were good. Mm-hmm. They were well done. A lot of those Mega Man games that came out on the system.
Those are fantastic. DuckTales 1 was actually, quite good.
And people don't. I mean, we take it for granted now, but that put handhelds on the map. Before that, you're dealing with the NTEC Select game, which no one had.
Microvision.
And the Microvision. So it really wasn't. But until the Game Boy, handhelds weren't a viable property. You had in '89. You also, or was it in early '90? You had the Turbo Express. That was too expensive. That was $299.99. For that, I believe at the time.
Yes.
Now, obviously, it was incredible technology, the Turbo Express, but that was like the Cadillac of handhelds. No one had that.
Well, the Lynx was nice too, but like I said, I mean, everyone was.
The Lynx was nice too, but it didn't have the games. No. Mostly Atari first party games. You had a lot of the arcade ports and maybe a few third party games. But
in truth be told, of those three, the Game Boy was actually the most portable. I mean, we look at it as big and bulky now. I think it's a really comfortable system to hold. I like bulkier systems, but
Lynx was not portable.
No.
Yeah, I remember the commercials the kids would put in their pocket that was like this, like a foot deep, but no, it wasn't portable.
Especially not with the jeans kids were wearing at the time. You weren't wedging that into your.
I remember the kids are playing like in the bathroom stall at school, and it's just like the thing was like a foot almost. It was big.
Yeah.
Even the second version was big. It was like a few inches shorter, but it was still big.
So, any discussion about the Game Boy wouldn't be right without talking about Tetris as the pack-in.
Oh, of course.
How influential that was on its immediate success, at least in the U.S.
You can argue that if Tetris wasn't packed in, it would not have been even nearly as big as it was.
I know people who still, come into the store to this day with their kids and their moms or dads, and they say, I don't know anything about this video game stuff, but they'll see like the Game Boys in the be like, oh, I still have one of those with Tetris. And that's the only game they ever had for it.
Yeah.
And that's all they play on it. And they still do. They just throw they throw 4 batteries in and just leave it on the back of the toilet? Or probably?
I don't recall if it was advertised to like businessmen and people slightly older, but I remember just in my head being that was the message it was giving off. That if the Nintendo was for kids, the Game Boy was for adults and kids. Like they sort of made this transition somehow to that point.
They made it a very... and it worked for them, but they advertised it as a very age and gender. I seem to remember, at least in the early days, the Play It Loud series was obviously going more towards kids. But anyway, my point, it kind of comes across as an age and gender neutral system.
Sure.
It's gray. There's nothing flashy about a Game Boy. It's very basic looking, and it gets packed in with Tetris, which I think for most kids would probably not be their choice of pack-in game. No. They would want Super Mario, but that was a good way for parents to either get something that they would use themselves or buy something, and then Nintendo basically had a guaranteed sale of another game because they knew Tetris wasn't going to hold their kids over forever.
Sure, I also think that they were probably surprised that it appealed to females so much. Tetris. I don't think they could have saw that really coming. Like all of a sudden you have this puzzle game that, wow, this is a game that girls and women can pick up and play, and they like it just as much as the guys do.
Yeah, they were. I think that caught them by surprise, but they were very proud of that, and they did kind of rest on that. They various puzzle games for the system, like it was pretty much ensured that any good puzzle game, even bad puzzle games, were going to get ports to the Game Boy to keep that market alive. Which at the time I think it was looked at as this isn't me saying it. This is like the market. Women play puzzle games. That's what they do. So Dr. Mario got a port. Yoshi got a port. Basically, if you look at any display of gray cart Game Boy games, you're gonna see a ton of puzzle games on there. Everyone was trying to recreate that success of Tetris.
And so you always it's hard to forget, but the Game Boy's life was if you include the color, it was over 10 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's insane for any system.
Up to 99, I think.
But for a handheld?
Yeah.
Well, actually, when did the Game Boy Advance come out? 2001?
2000.
2000
off the top of my head, it was 2000.
So you're talking 10 plus years of a handheld system. Do you imagine that today? With now a Game Boy, the new if you want to call them the new Nintendo handhelds, it's every like 4 or 5 years there's a new one coming out almost. Yeah. But if you count, I don't count the Pocket. It's the same. By the way, I love when the Pocket came out.
Such a nice screen, very high contrast.
If that was what it originally was, with black and white and clear, I probably would have wanted that. The turnoff for me was with the Game Boy was that it was green. That bothered me that it wasn't color as a kid. Right. I figured for that cost. I didn't know about the cost of LCDs or whatever, but I was looking at the Turbo Express and Game Gear, like, well, those are color. Why isn't the Game Boy? So I never got one, and I never really asked for one either. I remember as a kid, I always only really played it borrowing it from my friend Kevin. He had Batman. He had a lot of like the early titles. I think he had Alleyway. He had Super Mario Land. So that's why I'm not a huge Game Boy guy today, just because I didn't really grow up with it, unfortunately.
It was the first system that my brother and I bought with our own money. When my parents were living in an apartment, our landlord was this really nice dude named Steve. He used to let us play Ninja Turtles in the back of his truck. Like
Ninja Turtles, everyone had that first Ninja Turtles game. It seemed like because that was so big in 89, 90 in the Turtles.
Oh no, I mean like he would park his actual truck in the parking lot because he lived above the duplex, and he would let us use the bed of the truck as the sewer. All the kids would play in the backyard and stuff. He didn't care. He was just a nice guy. He would just let you climb all over his shit. He let you wait.
He used what was the sewer you were playing in?
The bed of the truck. He had a pickup truck.
Okay.
Yeah, he didn't care if you climbed around in there and played on his truck.
I'm trying to keep this not creepy.
It's not creepy.
Okay.
No, it's not like he played Ninja Turtles with us. He just didn't care if we used his truck as part of whatever we were doing. Whatever. Anyways, he would always let my brother and I rake leaves, and he would pay us pretty well. He paid us $100 to rake all of his properties 4 times in the fall. So my brother went out and bought a Game Boy, and we actually shared it very well. The system I bought the next year would be the Genesis. But yeah, anyways, so I have fond memories of it. I did grow up with it. I didn't have a lot of games for it, though, when I was growing up. I had like 4, which is why I love Fall of the Foot Clan so goddamn much, because it was one of the few games
It's
I
a
had
simple
for the system.
game, but you like it.
Yeah.
It's like those early Game Boy games that were side-scrollers. The characters were like big, but there was like only one guy coming at a time that you would hit, basically, you know? That was the whole game.
But I got really good at Alleyway. Obviously, I had Tetris. I'm trying to think of one of the other big ones I had. I don't know. I think for a long time it was those 3 games that I had.
And that's all that kept you going. Now, did you remember linking up with your friends and playing the 2-player mode? So was that cool at the time to do that?
We never got to make too much use of that. I don't think I did a link mode until Pokemon.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
so
I don't think I
so
linked
then
up.
you went out and bought it at that point. Did it come with it or no? You had
What?
the link. I thought it didn't come with it.
No, it doesn't.
It came with the headphones.
Yeah, it came with a set of really like gross like.
I remember one side was red and one
buttons.
was blue on it. It was just funny because the ones I have in the box, I do have the headphones for. But yeah, they're like the cheapest headphones probably. That's still cool is to have the headphones. I think that's what appealed. Again, that appealed to like the older people probably too. They can go in the subway and play their handheld. You know. How long did the batteries last? Do you remember how long like a fresh set of batteries would last? And it came with batteries too. It came with those red batteries.
You know, it's always longer than people think.
6 hours, 8 hours.
Oh no, I'm fairly certain it's about 30 because because my backlit one gets about 20 to 25.
With a backlit. Mm-hmm. Wow, and then you think that's probably like double the power it takes, or whatever percentage.
Let's be a little conservative. I'd say 20 on my backlit one. I'd probably say about 22 to 25 hours on the non-backlit.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, I would not expect that.
No.
At all.
Could be wrong, but I mean, I get insane. Those are the numbers I've heard knocked around, and I get, like I said, I get insane life out of my backlit one. You would think that I would get much less life out of it.
So the legacy of the Game Boy is obviously Nintendo's been dominating the handheld market for 25 years, which is insane to think about. It's absolutely insane.
I think it's been good for Nintendo and bad. It's been good because they've really focused on things like their portable market, and their portables have continued to be awesome devices to this day.
Yeah.
A couple slip-ups here and there, but, for the most part, I mean, I didn't like the first iteration of the Game Boy Advance,
Yeah, because
it's a very dark screen.
Yeah, well, you can't play the damn thing.
Right.
But once they got the SP out there, you're like, okay, this is cool.
I mean, the screen was darker on the GBA than it was on the color. But I think Nintendo has also not learned to separate their design theory for handhelds from their consoles, and I think that's what's hurting them now. I mean, you go back to, Gunpei's, withering technology sort of thing. That works for handhelds, and it's worked for Nintendo forever there. And handhelds are always lower powered than Sony's or the competition, Neo Geo Pocket Color.
But they have the software.
But they have the software, and it works. Where it's not working for them is consoles. They've always tried to, keep costs down by using older tech on consoles. But it's at the point now, people have HD TVs, big TVs. When you plug something into your TV, you want to be wowed. And while I'm not saying I'm in that boat, I like the Wii U, I like the Wii and all that. It's not working for the majority of consumers. So I think, if they rest too much on the success of their handhelds or look to it too much, it can get them in trouble.
But I think that you can almost say without the Game Boy though, you wouldn't have the plethora of these iPhone games and things like that, because Nintendo sort of created that sort of world of handheld gaming that wasn't really there before.
Sure,
someone else might have picked it up, but honestly, no. Some kids had the Game Gear. The Game Gear was not the best system.
It required Nintendo doing it right to really open that market up.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, at this point, I feel like somehow it would have fallen into place. We'd still have portable tech, and people would be like, hey, it would be cool if we had games on it. But we wouldn't have gotten there as quickly as we did if it wasn't for the Game Boy.
Nintendo sort of kicked the door open.
Sure.
You could have had, the Lynx. Yeah, some people love the Lynx, but come on, really? Or the Game Gear, again, come on, really? It's a master system on basically a portable master system, but they really didn't have a lot of games. Was it? Yeah, Game Gear. Yeah. I like the Lynx though. I love the Turbo Express. But so the Game Gear is in terms of like collectability, it's not as collected as you'd think it'd be for a system that was that popular. It's nowhere near collected like the NES is.
There was a spurt a couple of years ago where every collector who had to be collecting the hot thing at the time was going after boxed complete Game
Yes,
Boy
but not
games.
going for like a loose set. You never hear a lot of people saying, I have a loose Game Boy set.
You know what? I was looking at my Game Boy games the other night because I have so much fun with them, and I was like, if I were to ever go for a full set of
It'd be Game Boy?
It'd be Game Boy. Why? Because it can be done cheaply, with the exception of a few expensive ones, and most of those expensive ones would be ones I'd actually want to play. I mean, I'm not going to.
Well, here's the thing, though. A lot of those games that are hard to find, yeah, they're cheap right now. Like I think I told you, like Universal Soldier, I have in the box. You can't find it loose, or
Right.
World Championship Wrestling, you can't find it. But if a lot of people start going into that, then there's not many of those copies for whatever reason.
But I don't know. By the same token, I really looked through all the games that I had in my
How many do you have?
box.
Let's go for a complete setting.
I've got like 50.
Oh, yeah, I think I have like 200.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You know, I always talk about curating your collection. Any game that I pull out of that lunchbox is something that I'm going to look at and go, yeah, I want to play this. So, anyways, Game Boy is awesome. I love it.
I gotta start playing it. We should link up and that sounds dirty.
No, not unless you want it to sound dirty.
Do I have the link? I'm trying to think if I have the link.
I do. I have a link. I have links.
I have the F1 race link, so I have that, so we can just use that.
Yeah, see, that's what I would really like to do is I've always wanted to do a 4-player. I was actually playing F1 Race the other night. It's a really fun game. Really simple. Really
why don't
fun.
we have a Game Boy night?
I want to get 4 people and 4 Game Boys and do 4-player.
Is that the only 4-player game?
No, I think there's a
Maybe
couple more, but I think the Nintendo World Cup Soccer port for Game Boy is 4 players.
Is that a pretty good port?
Yeah, it's really decent.
I think the Nintendo one.
Yeah, definitely want to. Maybe if I make it back to MagFest this year, we can all have a meetup.
Make it back to MagFest.
We can all do 4-player link up F1.
Bring our old ass Game Boys.
I'm gonna bring my sweet tricked out one.
Oh no, I'll bring the color one.
Yeah,
I have a silver one. I think I have a silver one. I have a few color. Excuse me, pocket. Well, actually no. Well, I want to bring the. Well, do you like how the color would?
Actually, for the 4-player adapter, I think you would need to have DMGs because of the size of the port. They shrunk the port.
You can't use it for the pocket.
You can get. Well, no, yeah, you can get big to small. Yeah, you can do it.
Oh, you can.
Yeah, never mind. You can
There's an adapter, or it can fit though.
There's no. You can get some that are big on one end for the DMGs and small on the other for the pockets.
Really, they made a different link.
Yeah, it's
cable.
different.
Oh.
It's a different port.
Oh, different port.
But I think as long as you have one DMG to host it, you're fine. Anyways, whatever. Game Boy.
Game Boy good.
All right.
Buy it today in store. Piss off Ian when you buy it.
Yeah.
Ask for $100 off the price.